Hey everybody, it's Erik, co-founder, partner of Village Global, a network-driven venture firm. And this is Venture Stories, a podcast covering topics relating to tech and business with world-leading experts. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Village Global's Venture Stories. I'm here today joined by a very special guest, Andrew Yu. Andrew is running the newly announced On Deck Product Management Fellowship. Andrew, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Erik. So glad to be here. Excited.
Why don't you define what is ODPM and how did you come to lead it?
Yeah, absolutely. So ODPM, On Deck Product Management, is an 8-week remote program for experienced product managers who want to not only accelerate their careers, but want to do more. They want to do more with their experience and their expertise. And they want to do this through networking, skill-based applied learning, and productizing their experience. So, and then a little bit about how I got involved is really, On Deck's been around. It's all the buzz right now, right? It's if you're on Twitter, you can't miss it. And so I've been pretty active on Twitter. Came through a referral through a friend of mine, Lenny, and just a bunch of other connections that way. So yeah, that's a little bit about the program and how I got here.
Thanks to Lenny Rachitsky for making that possible. Why don't you give a brief background of your journey? And I think it's powerful because it's such a sort of diverse journey of experiences, and it will inform some of the things that will happen in ODPM as well in terms of exploring.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I didn't start off as a product manager, right? Like a lot of PMs had a different way of getting into the game. The industry at the time when I joined, early 2010s, there was no set way of becoming a product manager. There still isn't. And so I initially had studied liberal arts in school. I wanted to become a product manager because I'd read a lot of Paul Graham's writings, actually. So shout out Paul Graham. And at that time, I learned that I needed to learn how to code. And so that is how I got into it. Very difficult back in the day, but eventually made that transition at my first startup. Worked at a couple more startups, transitioned to more full-time product management roles, and then eventually made it to LinkedIn, where I learned a ton of just some of the best world-class practices of how to run product at scale. Love my team and still really close friends with a lot of them. And eventually left, not because of anything wrong or anything like that. It's just that I wanted to see what else more was out there that I could do with my product management skill set. And so this was this was last year during the election. And sure enough, I was able to work on the Biden campaign as a product manager. After that, worked on the inauguration as a product manager. And that already just started giving me more ideas of like, hey, there's so much that you can do with this skill set. Very flexible, very durable. After that, I started consulting. I still do consulting work as a product manager. And so all of that is to say, it's just such a flexible, adaptable, exciting skill set that I think a lot of us haven't really even scratched the surface of in terms of experienced product managers and just what the future has in store for all of us.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about how this program differs from other sort of, programs for a similar audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think when we talk about any kind of program and bringing folks together with a specific skill set, there's a couple ways to talk about it. So first is there's definitely going to be a lot of skills-based learning. So we're going to have a lot of hands-on workshops. Got a nice roster of guest speakers. So excited to announce them lined up. We're going to be having a fireside chat. So that's all great and well. But I think really the secret sauce of this program is going to be in what I call the intentional and very structured networking. And this is in line with On Deck's vision and mission to really connect the world's most ambitious people. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a lot of intentional networking sessions that are going to be based on specialization. They're going to be topic-based by week. Individuals are also going to be assigned into what we call mastermind groups, where these are basically going to be, I call it your personal board of advisors by the time you leave, so that whenever you have a problem at work, a specific product problem, a challenge, and you need to talk to someone, and you want to brainstorm and you want to workshop it, this is going to be your group. As we all know, product management is a very isolating and lonely job sometimes. And sometimes you can't even find that support at work just because of the hecticness. And so having that network and having that group is going to be really powerful. So that's another special sauce. So even beyond that, the real differentiator of this program is going to be the ability for product management fellows to be able to interact with and network and connect with other fellows from all the other programs that On Deck has to offer. So if you think of the founders program, if you think of scale, VC, angels, and things like that, a lot of which are natural progressions for a lot of product managers. We're actually going to have a lot of guests come in and talk about their transition from product management to something like starting a company or becoming a VC. So that's also going to be really special and unique to this program. And then I know this is a lot, but finally, we're going to have a whole component about productizing yourself. And what that means is that you, as an experienced product manager, you have so much expertise, you have so much knowledge, you have so many stories and things that you've shipped under your belt. And you're really capping yourself in a lot of ways if you're not sharing that out in some kind of productized form, which is another way of saying content, right? So whether it be writing, whether it be speaking, whether it be recording all those things and having a social media presence, this is going to be the place to do that in a safe and cohortized way. So you're going to have that psychological safety net. You're all going to be doing this together. And by the end of the program, you're going to have published content. You're going to have shared your experience and knowledge to a broader audience. So yeah, really excited for all of that.
Talk a little bit about some of the mistakes PMs make in their career, or like where do they get stuck as PMs, or maybe some of the misconceptions people have about how to grow as a PM. What comes to mind there?
Yeah, absolutely. So as a product manager, as someone who has been in situations where I felt stuck, this definitely resonates. So I think one of the mistakes, or, I don't really want to call it a mistake, but I think one of the constraints that PMs often put on themselves, and speaking as someone who has done this myself, is that we think that there's one path to become a product manager. There's a linear career structure. It goes, if you've been in the space long enough, you can rattle it off the top of your head. It goes APM, PM, senior PM. And then there's that gap. It's like, do you become a GPM, a group product manager? Do you become a PPM? And then maybe if you're lucky, you become a director. Maybe if you're even luckier, you become a VP. And so I think that that's often what we think is available. That's all that's available to us. But there really is so much more that you can do with this amazing skill set of sitting at the intersection of design, business, and engineering. And that's what this program aims to do, is to really get a fantastic, stellar group of experienced product managers to be intensively talking about this in an intentional and thoughtful way.
Totally. So talk more about what the nuts and bolts of the program might look like.
Yeah. So in true PM fashion, you can think of this as like a 2x2 grid. So on one axis, you can think of the participation level. So let's say it goes from yourself all the way to everybody. And then another axis is the depth of material. So how deep is the material going to be versus is it going to be more high level in discussion? So if you visualize in your mind's eye this grid, this coordinate, you're basically going to be having a buffet of options every week across this grid. So just to be more specific, the nuts and bolts. So we're going to have core weekly sessions where we're going to be diving into topics and having fireside chats with industry experts. So you can think of that more of high level, everybody's involved, everybody's attending. Then we're going to have individual workshops based on these topics where you're going to actually be applying some of the lessons that we've talked about. So let's pick a topic that we're going to be diving into in week 3. So it's working on what matters and solving hard problems, right? Like, how do you actually drill into whether or not you know what you're working on is what matters to your team and your company? So that's one example of a topic. Then just moving down the list, we're going to have things like discussion clubs, which are basically unstructured sessions around a structured topic, where this is optional. Folks can come in, have a further conversation about the topic of the week. And then you're going to meet weekly with your mastermind group. So this is by specialization. So let's say you're a monetization PM. You're going to have your group of other monetization PMs that you meet with every week, working on projects and capstones. Imagine you're a B2B PM. Imagine you're a growth PM. Same thing. And then you're going to have individual assignments. These are all optional, of course. This isn't school per se, but for those who love the tactical aspects of these kind of programs, we're going to have more than enough resources and worksheets that you can apply immediately. I think one of the principles of this program is going to be that everything that we cover every week, you can take to your team immediately. Like this should be applicable to your current situation, to your company right away. It's not theoretical. It's not just discussions. It's actually applicable to your role in company. So that's just a taste of the kind of things that we're going to have. There's a lot more things like socials and networking. Even within the networking, there's going to be intra and inter on deck networking. So yeah, lots to cover there, Eric.
What's career advice that you found pretty commonly applicable across PMs as they're evolving in their career?
Yeah, I think the best piece of career advice that I got was wrapped into one. It was that you should be very proactive about how you think about your career, and that no one is going to care about your career more than you. So what that really drills down to, if you had to succinctly put it, is it's just ownership. It's like taking charge of your career and really taking the steps to do something like taking a program like this, or putting together a design and a plan of what your career might look like. We have a whole module about career hypotheses and optionality. So yeah, I mean, that advice has stuck with me the entirety of my career. It's just very honest. I was like, no one's going to care more than you. So you better take the reins, and you got to have high agency, and it's up to you. But the thing is, it's also very empowering, right? Because what that means is then all of a sudden you have the freedom and you have the options to explore whatever you do want, given the fact that you have this amazing skill set of product management. So yeah, that's what I would say is has been the most resonating piece of advice.
Totally. And how about as people are advancing in their career as PM, like when you were mentioning optionality, like what forks in the road do PMs usually come to, and any frameworks to help think about it?
Yeah, so I think the most obvious one, right, is, hey, do I want to be a people manager, or do I want to keep being a stellar individual contributor? So there's tons of really good writing about that. One of our speakers who's coming, Jackie Bavaro, she's written a ton about that too. But the question there isn't so much about like, do I want to be a manager, or do I want to be an IC, continue to be IC? The real question there is like, do I want to grow people? Like, is that going to be my life's purpose moving forward, right? So that's one example of a fork in the road. Another one is, do I want to keep working in the specific industry that I'm working in right now? So just to give you an example, a lot of the folks that I met on the campaign, a lot of the folks that are working on social impact causes via product management, they're from tech. Like they're former Google people, they're former Facebook people. And when you see people like that, experienced product managers like that, you have this shared language of like, oh, that's the fork in the road that you were in, and you made that decision to say, hey, I should want to see what else I can do with my skill set. And that's not to say you're closing off the path that you just came from, right? They could always go back. In fact, a lot of the folks I know that I worked with did go back. But that fork in the road is more of a question of like, hey, do I want to do more? Do I want to see how far I can take my skill set? And our lives are pretty short at the end of the day, right? So in my mind, it's like, why wouldn't you? So that's another fork. And there's a bunch of other ones, right? There's like, hey, how much do I want to specialize in a specific field as a product manager? There's that. There's also like, hey, do I want to even keep doing product management, or do I want to switch into something like founding a company or becoming a VC, right? So there's tons of these forks in the road, and I think it's really a function of the breadth of disciplines that we get to encounter as a product manager.
And talk a bit about how the field has evolved, from in the last decade, so that sort of makes this more relevant, or that informs how ODPM is structured.
Yeah, absolutely. So the space of PM is evolving very fast. So just to take it back a couple years, even when I started, there was like XYZ ways to get involved into product management, and you could only really be a product manager for certain. There were not that many product manager roles, right? Fast forward to now, you have tons of folks coming in from all over the place. You have MBAs that are funneling into product management roles. You have a lot of management consultants. You have folks from nonprofits who are coming in, right? So all of that is to say that the space of product management is evolving in, I think, a really good way. And what I mean by that is that product management is now more along the lines of problem solving and delivering. It's basically creating and delivering value in an effective way, right? And using all the resources available to you, all the different teams that you work with. And so within the context of ODPM, I think what's really exciting about this is that who determines the evolution of product management is product managers. Like no one else is doing that for us. It's not like some company says, hey, we're doing this now. It's like, no, the way that product management evolves is through product managers. And so if we get all the brightest and most experienced and ambitious product managers together to a program like this, and we talk about this very intentionally, like, hey, where do we want product management to go in the next 5 to 10 years? Then I think this is a really good opportunity to do just that, to define the direction. As it stands right now, these conversations are happening. They're happening on Twitter. Saw a really good thread the other day that was like, hey, we need to expand our definition of what product management is. But to have it in this very structured and intentional and intensive way, I think it's going to be great.
That's a great place to wrap. So for people who are interested, where can they sign up?
Yeah. So if you go to beyonddeck.com and go to programs, we should have a tab there that's product management. It's going to be beyonddeck.com/PM. So that's it.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming on, Andrew. It's been a great episode.
Yeah. Thanks, Erik.
If you're an early stage entrepreneur, we'd love to hear from you. Check us out at villageglobal.vc.